Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Dave. He's Dave Bryan of SteelersDepot.com, the place to get your latest and greatest Steelers information. And I'm Dave and Todd at Season 9, Episode 42.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts, sports journalist David Todd, and from SteelersDepot.com, Dave Bryan.
Talking about the founding
Just a
of
couple
the
of
NFL.
Daves,
Check it out,
chilling,
on wherever.
talking Steelers.
You can find it in our link. We'll be tweeting that link out later today. So we'll have John mid-show. And Dave, the Steelers, three games with a bye in there, 3 games against divisional foes, 2 down, 1 to go. How you feeling about Ravens week?
Really excited. I mean, I think this is a key game for both these teams. And I don't know, we asked John about this, so I don't want to give his answer away here. But to me, and some have disagreed with me, believe it or not, disagreed with me on Twitter, I view this as a really kind of a close to a must win for the Ravens here because of where they're at and things. We already had a long rundown discussion the last several shows about where the AFC is at now, and I know you and I haven't talked since the Week 8 games into there, but I mean, there's Kansas City, New England, the Steelers, the Texans, the Chargers, Cincinnati, Baltimore, and what else do you have? I mean, are you believers in Miami? Are you believers in Tennessee? The Jets? Maybe you can throw Indianapolis in there, and either or with Houston or Indianapolis. But to me right now, David, this is like 7 teams battling for 6 spots at this point. And boy, if Baltimore loses this one, it feels more like a must-win game to Baltimore, even though they have already beaten the Steelers once.
Yep, and they look good doing it, and they haven't looked very good since, having lost 3 out of 4 with a shutout, a dominating shutout of Tennessee thrown in there when they got their 11 sacks. So, all right, well, that's the overarching storyline for us. The storyline is kind of wrapping up how the Steelers looked against the Browns, and Alex filled in admirably as always for me on Monday. I just thought it was a dominating performance. Certainly the Steelers made mistakes, but thought they did everything well. Look, the first 2 drives when Nick Chubb was able to run the ball a little bit, they were not great, but from there on, Steelers were clearly the better football team, and they gave up a late touchdown to make the score just almost respectable. Obviously, since then, Hue Jackson and Todd Haley lose their jobs. So a fascinating stat that the last 6 Cleveland coaches lose their jobs after a loss to the Steelers, which is somewhat phenomenal stat. That's probably never happened and not going to happen again in any sport anytime soon. But the Steelers came out of this one. They've got to come out, feeling great about themselves and ready to go in this game, and again, kind of reasonably healthy.
Absolutely. Well, look, I don't think either of us are surprised that Hue Jackson was turned loose after this game. Were you surprised that Todd Haley was let go? I was.
Well, I guess Jimmy Haslam felt like obviously Todd Haley was contributing to the dysfunction in the organization, and whether it was just direct conflict with Hue or something else, I think obviously his thinking was these guys are dysfunctional together, and I don't want to have I don't want to just go on with one of them. I'm going to clean them both out and start fresh. So
who do you think made the decision to hire Todd Haley? Do you think Dorsey or Hue Jackson? How do you suppose that went down? I mean, if you were worried and knew about his history before that, I mean, it really
you weren't worried because you hired him, so that you weren't worried.
Right. So then I mean, it looks bad. Here we are, 8 weeks into the season, and it really just look. Crack whatever jokes you want about how this organization has looked over the years. You would think with Dorsey in there. Who do you think made the decision to hire him?
I would assume, like everything else, it's a group decision. I don't think it was jammed down Hue Jackson's throat by Haslam because of his connections with the Steelers or Dorsey. I mean, you sit and you have a conversation about it and you make the decision. I mean, I'm sure Hue had to sign off on it. So, like Mike Tomlin talks about in the Steelers organization, he and Kevin, make collaborative decisions. If you're not making collaborative decisions at that level, you're doing it wrong, and they're not doing it right anyway. But that's what you want to be doing.
I obviously don't have a Todd Haley fathead up here on the wall, and boy, what an ugly one that would be. if I did, it'd be part of the. Well, I won't go there, but regardless. I guess where I'm going with this is things were kind of stacked against him, right? I mean, especially against the Steelers in this game this past week. You got a rookie quarterback. You got a rookie left tackle, an undrafted rookie left tackle at that. You have a rookie running back getting a predominant number of snaps in Nick Chubb. And other than Jarvis Landry, those receivers that they had to dress for that game, one rookie included in that got a lot of playing time, and then Brashad Perryman, who had been with the organization a couple of weeks, had to play some snaps in there too. To me, it doesn't look like a fair shake for Todd Haley, and I know a lot of people or fans of the Steelers probably disagree. They could give two rats petunias about Todd Haley, but to me, it feels like he got the shaft there.
I would getting to coach for half a season isn't really getting a fair shake. So I generally agree with that. Again, dysfunction. If you think an individual is part of the problem, then obviously time to move on.
Now, as far as the game goes, I mean, you would expect. I mean, you would expect the Steelers. We should have expected the performance that we got out of this team, though, right? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, hope for. I don't know about expect. We've seen them. As people, are quick to point out, we've seen them play down to the level of competition many times and lose some games that they should have won. So I don't know. I don't know that we've seen great performances from the Steelers at any point this year. We still haven't seen them put 60 minutes together. They played pretty damn well for 45 minutes in this one. But yeah, I don't know. I think again, it's hope for it, maybe not expected.
Where are you right now with this defense?
Yeah, I'm in a decent place. I think, look, they went into this game. I know everybody thinks their defense has been awful, but I think I mentioned last week that at least on the Football Outsiders metric, they ranked 14th overall and having played the third best group of offenses to that point in time. And I'll pull it up while we're talking here, but obviously that's moved up. Mike Hilton continues to be outstanding. Joe Hayden has been excellent of late. Bud Dupree maybe had the best game of his career. He was excellent. TJ was good. We finally saw something from Cam and Stephon Tuitt. Both those guys contributing. I mean, you can go up and down. You made the point. They didn't play the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday, but you made the point that they were good, and they were good. And when they were bad, hopefully we pointed out they were bad, and they were good in this game. And I think yes, rookie left tackle, you got to take it into account. But if they can get that kind of pressure and give Keith Butler credit, I think you might have written it up, or Alex, about they schemed well. They weren't bringing 5 or 6 guys all that often. They were getting pressure with 4. But they clearly were confusing the Browns with the 4 they brought and then who they were dropping in coverage. But if they're able to get coverage like that, the secondary is going to be multiples better because you got to cover for 2 less steps of the receiver's pattern, and this defense can be successfed.
Going back to last year, remember that first 7 or so games, the defense wasn't bad. They had given up a couple of big running plays. Remember the big long run to Fournette, 90-something yards, and a couple of big plays, 1 or 2 runs, I think, to Alex Collins, and then a couple of passing plays. But overall, I think they had 20, I don't remember the exact number, like 26 or 28 explosive plays that they allowed. Well, they've allowed a little bit more than that amount so far through the same amount of games this year. Now, obviously, look, I mean, 2 or 3 of those came late in the game against the Browns in that final drive, so you need to have some context there that those were harmless, if you will. Several more came in the game against the Chiefs, talking about the explosive plays there. The Ravens hit them up for a couple good ones in that first meeting as well. Those kind of things. Now, if you think back to last year, remember what happened from the Detroit Lions game on. That's when they started giving up not just the explosive plays, but the double and the triple ones and the people standing in the end zone with the football for touchdowns on top of it. Now, Joe Hayden did go down with that fibula. What was it, week 10 or so? The game against the Colts, about halfway through that changed the complexion of the defense a little bit as well too. So we see at least signs of this defense in the explosive play department moving in the right direction. But as I wanted to make sure that we pointed out that we thought that this defense was moving in the right direction during the first half of last year, only to find out that it wasn't that good at all. And when you look at the second half of games that the Steelers have this year against Carolina, against the Saints, against help me out here, the Chargers, they've got some offenses that are going to test them in the explosive play department. And I think that's the biggest thing right now, and has been obviously in today's NFL. You're going to give up yards. This is a new NFL as far as defense goes, right? I mean, you're going to give up the 300 yards a game now. Just don't get beat for chunks kind of thing. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And I said prior to this game against the Browns, and I want to just caution everybody right now. I just took your temperature and you said, okay, you're okay as where this defense is. I'm a little bit less than wherever you're at right now. I don't want a false sense of security here. I think this is a big game against the Ravens. Obviously not a high-power offense, but one that took it to them, in several weeks ago. And then obviously you get the Panthers, who maybe I haven't given enough respect to as of late. So to be continued right now when it comes to the defense.
No doubt. And the offense too. I mean, look, we've seen, some good things from the offense, and James Conner, AFC Player of the Week, having a, look.
He's looked fantastic. I mean,
he just continues to impress. I mean, he runs really hard. He's look. I don't care what anybody says about Le'Veon Bell. I mean, it would be very unlikely that Le'Veon Bell would be having a better season than James Conner right now. And again, it goes back to the point of, do you really want to pay somebody $15 million when you can find maybe 80% of the production for $500,000? And then for the Steelers, it looks like they've been getting about 95% or 100% of the production out of James Conner to this point in the season. So there's been very little impact. There's been very little noticeable impact on the Steelers. We can talk about the fumbles. He had his third fumble in that game, and that's something to pay attention to here going forward. And we know that one of those fumbles was very costly for the Steelers in that opener against the Browns. But man, he has been very good.
He really has. And the
Conner's right there with the top 3 or 4 back. His numbers to this point, this half season, take nothing else into account. Like, he doesn't have the pedigree of some of the guys taken at the top of the draft. But if you look at the numbers, yards per carry, I think Mixon's at 4.8, and you have Gurley, you have Zeke, you have Hunt, and come on. I mean, they're all right there at 4.7. James Conner's right there. It's a new NFL. Things are a little bit different, but James Conner's numbers are there with anybody's.
They absolutely are. I mean, when you not just AFC, but NFL wide. As you stated, you got Todd Gurley, all of them, Zeke, all of them 4.7 yards. The thing that that still sticks out to me, I think the most when it comes to James Conner's stats is he's still averaging over 10 yards per reception, David. And he has, how many does he have now? In total, 30. Do you remember what the total? Hold on here, and I'll look it up for you here. 31 receptions for 323 yards, 10.4 yards per reception. Now, if you got a running back that has like 10 receptions and you're looking at 10.4, you're thinking, okay, that's not that big of a deal. But when you start getting into that 30 and 40 reception mark, and he's carrying over a 10-yard per reception average, that sticks out. That is, you want to talk about wide receiver 2. That's tight end 1, wide receiver 2 kind of numbers there. So it's going to be interesting to see. Here's the thing too. He averaged, I pulled these numbers. He had 5 receptions against the Browns. Average something crazy like over 13 yards per reception there. So it's not just him running the power. And speaking of the power, the Steelers pulled an offensive lineman 12 times in that game, had just under 120 yards rushing on those 12 plays. And before this game even got underway, I said, look, this is a Steelers team that, based on what I've seen on film and the stats related to the Browns, it should have been able to run to the Steelers' left side of their offense against Myles Garrett, and lo and behold, they did. They ran 12 times to left guard and left tackle combined, and 120 yards, 10 yards per carry on that as well too. So it's not just him carrying the football; it's him doing it all, pass protection and all. Now, here's the thing that I think we would like to see with James Conner and really the Steelers' offense as a whole, and this kind of went back to what our discussion you and I had previewing that game. Need to see this offense starting faster, right? Not only Ben and the passing game, but the running game as well too. James Conner right now and the offense as a whole, it just seems to take a couple of drives. Now, obviously, you had the couple of good drives against the Falcons defense a couple of weeks ago, but can you imagine how much better the Steelers' defense might be if the Steelers' offense got out to shoot faster?
Yep, fair point. And, you had that great stat. And, again, Steelers putting up nothing in that first quarter. But from then on, awfully good. And kind of, a balanced offense. I mean, if you're going to look at the offense, the one thing that the takeaway here is the big surprise in this game was that James Washington coming out of the bye didn't get a helmet. I mean, and that, look, anybody can color it however they want, but that's just not a good sign for him the rest of the season. If coming out of the bye with a chance for generally rookies and guys who don't start to get extra young guys to get extra work, if they didn't feel comfortable, and look, I told you I was getting hints about that from some people around the team that that they were going to go. That I'm drawing a blank. 11.
Justin Hunter.
Justin Hunter was going to get.
Well, we knew from what Ben said during last Tuesday that Hunter wasn't going to be down this past week. The question was, are you going to dress all them wide receivers? I thought they would. I thought they'd sit down a guy like Matthew Thomas or something like that. But and we also went over at the tail end of that Cincinnati game as well too. It was a bit of a telling sign. The end of the second to the last drive, once it entered the red zone, it was Justin Hunter on the field. The game-winning drive, it was Justin Hunter on the field. Did he run a wrong route or miss an assignment or two during that Bengals game? Did he have a bad week of practice, during the bye week or coming out of the bye week? That's very possible. Look, this is a second-round draft pick, though, and make no mistake about it, he has not found his footing with Ben Roethlisberger, especially when it comes to the deep ball. But neither has Justin Hunter. Justin Hunter is not your answer. So with all that said, what are you doing with Justin Hunter and James Washington this week against the Baltimore Ravens?
Oh, it's not going to change. It's not. I'll be surprised if it changes this season now. I mean, if he didn't get – if Justin Hunter is your answer right now, he is your fourth receiver. I mean, clearly, he's ahead of Washington. So, say what you want.
So you expect Washington to be down again? For next couple of weeks,
I do. Unless somebody gets injured, I expect him to be down. Yeah,
man. If Washington's not injured,
he's not injured.
Right. I'm saying. Well, we don't know for sure, but I mean we're assuming. I mean he's not on the injury report, but if this thing isn't at all injury related and he is inactive for the next couple games, then that's major concern. Then obviously because I mean this is you got a second round draft pick in this kid. You expect him to kind of play through this, especially what you saw on tape with him. Right now, from where I'm sitting, because I know who the animal that Justin Hunter is and isn't, I'll be pretty damn shocked if James Washington is inactive.
Well, I don't think anybody's arguing the point that James Washington's got a higher ceiling than Justin Hunter. It's that Justin Hunter is a better player in your offense when you play the Ravens on Sunday, or at least that's what they thought in the game, last week against the Browns. Justin Hunter gives us a better chance to win this game. And, is that going to change this week in practice? Maybe, but you would expect that to really change during the 2 weeks of the bye. And it seemed to go the other way. So to me, that's the red flag, is that it's not a question necessarily still of talent. It's that he hasn't figured it out.
Yeah, and if he, like I said, it's not a good sign if he's inactive these next couple of games, against the Ravens, and then the short week against the Panthers. There, I told Alex my mouth didn't drop to the floor when James Washington was inactive, but my eyebrows did raise.
I think that's fair way to put it. I mean, look, we've seen in terms of young guys coming on. You don't see a lot when when one's your third string quarterback and hasn't been active yet. His teammate's your second round pick and he's, seeing less of the field rather than more of the field. I mean, we got a nice little cameo from Jalen Samuels, Steelers 5th round pick, getting some carries after Ridley fumbled late in that game. But, obviously Terrell Edmonds is getting his fair share of work with the injury to Burnett and the situation there. But it's, yeah, and the guy who probably the other guys is Chooks is getting 15, 20 snaps in there, being in the Chris Hubbard role.
Yeah, he is, and make sure we take our hat off again and hand it to Matt Filer. Good game, Alejandro Villanueva. Good game as well. Steelers started 2 former undrafted free agents at tackle against a damn good Browns defense. So I mean,
Steelers line's just been a beast the last 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, they've played outstanding.
I mean, all of them. Ramon Foster. I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of those GIFs I put up on the Twitter machine last night of Ramon Foster. If Ramon Foster says you don't get in the club, you ain't getting in the damn club. I mean, he just flat out can stand some people up. Really has been good. It's good to see him on the move as well, too. Okay, Artie Burns. Where you at on Artie Burns right now?
Look, I was where I was at Artie Burns is Artie Burns. They probably should sit for the rest of the season, having nothing to do with the discipline issue. I think he was playing poorly enough that you just had to put him down, like you put Ike down a couple of years ago, or however many years ago it was, just to get on the sidelines and just kind of watch and just watch. And so there's not that pressure out there now. The walkthrough. All my experiences, everybody says Artie's a good guy. Artie's not a 100% me first guy. He made a mistake. Obviously, he made a mistake and he paid for it. I wouldn't be in a hurry to get him on the field. But the one thing the Steelers do is they do assess guys in practice. They do watch and see what's going on. And if they feel like Artie has corrected kind of some of the technique flaws that he had and that he has enough confidence, I guess you'd put him back in there, but I would not hurry to put him back in there.
Mike Tomlin made sure to point out that he did have a good week of practice, and, probably if not, we can only read in between the lines, and if not for him being, tardy for a walkthrough, makes you kind of wonder how the game against the Browns would have turned out there. We're not done seeing him start the season, right?
I wouldn't. I don't think we're not done seeing him play this season. I don't know that he's just going to get his starting job back. I wouldn't start him this week after how Sensabaugh played. Now, obviously, you get a health issue with Sensabaugh. The guy, the other guy to read something into here is Cam Sutton. Certainly hasn't taken a step forward, and he's had ample opportunity to assert himself as the second best corner on this team during this season. And he hasn't done that. So that's a little bit concerning midway, a 3rd round pick midway through his second year. You'd hope a little bit better from Cam Sutton, I think. So, Cody Sensabaugh is not a guy that anybody was jumping up and down about at any point from when the Steelers signed him to this week. And it seems to me like right now he is the Steelers' second best corner.
It'll be interesting to look. I think we haven't seen the last of Artie Burns starting this year. Is it going to be against the Ravens? I don't know. They got some speed there. They could probably use that in the thing. I guess now is a perfect time to hit the injury situation. Mike Tomlin talked about the finger that Ben Roethlisberger injured during the game against the Browns. What did he say? A fractured left index finger. So I think he did that on one of those quarterback sneaks, the one that he fumbled on. I think that's when Ben may have done that. It looked like he was kind of shaking it around not long.
He took quite a shot on that quarterback sneak. He took a real shot.
Yeah, it makes you kind of wonder how many more of those are we going to see. He took one in look at the side of the coconut on that one, up head and neck area.
Right, that's what I meant. I mean, I was surprised he got. That's the whole thing. I think that goes back to the Washington game, that Monday night game 9 years ago. That's kind of why that play came out of the offensive playbook.
All right, so that shouldn't be a concern. We'll see if Ben had just started practicing on Wednesday again too, so it'll be interesting to see if he's given today off. We'll know obviously later on today when the first injury report comes out. Mike Tomlin also mentioned Cody Sensabaugh with a toe. It was Mike initially called it a foot coming out of that game against the Browns. It doesn't sound like it's serious, but I mean, who knows? I mean, you get to Wednesday and that injury report comes out, and some people sit that you didn't expect to sit, and all like that. So we'll just, Mike said it's going to be kind of day to day with Cody Sensabaugh, and really the same thing with Marcus Gilbert with that knee. To me, it's kind of time to worry if Marcus Gilbert misses another game this week because of a knee injury of some sort. So we'll have to watch that there. You would expect Marquise Pouncey and Ramon Foster to be given a Veterans Day off at some point during this week. It'll probably be Pouncey on Wednesday and Ramon Foster on Thursday. But outside of Roethlisberger, Cody Sensabaugh, and Marcus Gilbert, those are the only names that we're expecting to be on the injury report right now. Now, obviously, they got back Darius Hayward-Bay, Morgan Burnett, and L.J. Fort this past week. That's a good sign there. Burnett and Fort saw quite a few snaps in that.
So I was wrong on Fort. He played a lot more snaps than I anticipated. I think he was in the low 20s.
Yeah, in the 20s.
Didn't expect to see that.
Yeah, and I'm going to have a post, I think, coming out in the next day or two talking about how the Steelers defense performed when both those guys were on the field together as well, too. So, that's something that, remember, the Steelers didn't – remember that first game against Baltimore, they didn't have Morgan Burnett. Fort played mop-up duty after Vince Williams left that game with the hamstring injury late. And Fort played well in that game as well, too. So it's going to – and also didn't Hilton miss that game as well, too, with an injury, right?
Yeah, he missed one with that shoulder, and the left arm, shoulder, whatever it was. I don't remember which one he missed, but he did miss.
That was a hyperextended elbow, and I believe he missed a game against the Ravens as well too. So this is going to be a little bit different looking defense. The Steelers lined up against the Ravens this time.
All right, Dave. Well, with that, let's get into it. Let's hear from our buddy John Eisenberg. Okay, it's Wednesday, and Ravens week, always a special week for both Steelers and Ravens fans, and of course for the players and everybody involved in the game. And heightened, maybe it always seems somewhat heightened, but a big one this week down in Baltimore as the Steelers are playing to kind of take control of the AFC North, and the Ravens not necessarily playing for their playoff lives, but certainly playing for a season that has turned dramatically since the Ravens took care of the Steelers the first time around. And we're pleased to be joined, as we always are during Ravens Week, by John Eisenberg. You can follow John at @BMoreEisenberg on Twitter. You can find his stuff at ravens.com. And, of course, John's the author of a new book just out that you can find at Amazon or your local bookstore, The League, which is the story of how five rivals created the NFL and launched the sports empire. And as you can imagine, the Steelers are heavily involved in the storytelling of that. John, always great to be with you.
Thank you for having me. As always, appreciate the shout out on the book there.
John, you called it dead on last time. The Ravens came into Pittsburgh and took care of business. And since then, things have kind of gone the other direction. They were in the driver's seat early in the season here. What's happened since these two teams last met?
Well, this is the $1,000 question in Baltimore, that's for sure. People can't quite figure it out. I mean, they've gone on the road and sort of laid some eggs. They laid an egg in Cleveland the week after the Pittsburgh game. They certainly laid an egg last weekend against the Carolina Panthers, who just whipped them. And they also blew a lead at home against the New Orleans Saints, had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter and couldn't hold it. So a couple of dreadful road performances, and then for me, the worst of them, you've got to lead at home, and the Saints are pretty good, but they had them and just let it slip away. And then came back and would have tied it, but Justin Tucker missed an extra point for the first time in his career. So it's sort of an odd assemblage of things have happened to the Ravens, but the general issue is they haven't been consistent. The offense has sort of been up and down. The defense, one of the best in the league, but not against Carolina on Sunday. Carolina really handled them physically, schematically, you name it. So that was definitely a performance that I think surprised them and put their backs against the wall. So that's definitely where the Steelers are coming in here at a time when the Ravens are feeling like, oh my gosh, if we don't get this thing together, our season's going to go down the drain.
John, it's interesting because you mentioned the defense and how well they've played. The Steelers were on their bye week, so a lot of people in Pittsburgh, they actually, carried the Ravens-Saints game on the local broadcast, so people were able to watch that. I was able to watch that. They dominated the first half defensively, and then, as you point out, the Ravens kind of came back. And they're a very good offensive team, but it's now been 6 not very good quarters for the defense. Has somebody figured something out, or can you point to anything that's happened defensively for them and that led to these 2 losses?
Yeah, I think I can a little bit. And John Harbaugh actually alluded to it, and that is the one win they've had since they played the Steelers was in Tennessee, and it was sort of an epic game. They had 11 sacks.
Right.
And it was just Marcus Mariota was just submerged there. They were just all over him. It was a historic defensive performance, really. But I think since that game, the last 2 teams they played, the Saints and the Panthers, realized, we got to get that ball out quick. There's just no more classic dropbacks. The ball is out very quickly. The quarterback is in motion a lot. The Saints came in here and put Taysom Hill all over the place and had him under center, split Breeze out wide. Anything they can do to sort of limit the standard aggressiveness of the Ravens.
Yeah, John,
especially
listeners may not know who Taysom Hill is. He's a quarterback who comes in and basically plays a little bit like Lamar Jackson, right?
That's exactly right. And the Saints have never used him like they did in the game in Baltimore. He was on the field for 26 snaps. And some of the key third downs in the red zone, Drew Brees is split out like a receiver, a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. So all of this stuff has sort of negated the Ravens' pass rush, and it has sort of exposed their coverage for what it is, which can be more average without that pass rush. Especially the cornerbacks are pretty good. Jimmy Smith has definitely taken a step back with his injuries. Brandon Carr's been pretty good, and Marlon Humphrey has been out, their best cornerback. So, and the safeties, just not that strong in coverage, and they've historically had a problem with tight ends over the middle. The Steelers exploited that the last time. So it exposes their coverage a little bit. And so that's where the Ravens are.
I haven't had a chance to watch the game against the Panthers yet, but outside of the highlights, of course. But 3 straight touchdown drives by the Panthers there in the first half, followed by another drive. I think that ended in a field goal there, following that interception. Were they doing a lot of the things that maybe they had learned from? Was the ball coming out with Cam? Obviously, Cam also did some damage with his legs in that game as well too, but is that pretty much what you saw? Is them learning and building upon what the Saints did?
Building upon it, I would say yes. I mean, they certainly realized, you can't just drop back. And I mean, under Wink Martindale, the Ravens a lot of pressure, and Tennessee just couldn't handle it. And Tennessee has a decent offensive line, but they couldn't handle it. And so the Saints did some things, and then the Panthers did what they do best: put the ball in Cam's hands, and it was different. They ran a lot of RPOs, and there was a lot of misdirection. They look like they're going one way, and Cam would take off the other way. Really effective against the Ravens, and you could tell early in that game, first quarter. I said, boy, I'm watching. I'm thinking the Ravens they don't know where the ball's going here. It was a Norv Turner special, and he I thought just called an outstanding game and really negated what the Ravens do well, and made it their advantage. So it was misdirection and just no standard dropbacks, and of course with Cam Newton that's easy to do.
We saw the trade deadline come and go on Tuesday, and surprised I had to look twice. I saw the Ravens make a move up in there for Ty Montgomery from the Packers for, I think, a 7th-round draft pick. I didn't see that one coming. Maybe you did. What's the rhyme and reason behind them adding Ty Montgomery? Is something wrong with? I mean, Alex Collins obviously hasn't been great this year, but I mean, I think he's still been effective in situations. Is there an injury concern somewhere in there, or were you surprised by the move?
Surprised only that, as you alluded to, the Ravens never do that. They never make a move like that. But this was a low-risk move. I mean, it was literally – it's a 7th-round draft pick, I believe, in 2020. So the Packers really just gave this player away.
Doesn't get cheaper than that. Doesn't get cheaper than that.
No, 2 years away of 7th-round draft pick. It was just a gift. And so the Ravens just said, well, it's a decent player. We'll take him. I mean – so I think obviously they've been having issues with the running game this year. They're bottom 3rd in the league in all the metrics, yards per game, yards per carry. And so it's not going that great. I think it's more an issue with the line than anything. They've had some injuries there. And I think you can call into question just the overall talent level of the line. So there have been some issues there. So they're just trying to get that running game going more, and maybe I don't know how they'll use him. I don't know that he's there to supplant Collins. He may be there to become a different threat out of the backfield than Buck Allen. Buck Allen is yards per carry are below 3. I mean, as a runner, they're really not using him much anymore. He's a pretty good receiver, and he's good in the red zone. He's hit the end zone a number of times. So a fairly productive player despite a low yards per carry. So I'll be interested to see how they use Montgomery, but Kenneth Dixon was going to be the 3rd back, and he's been injured. He's on IR, and they've got some undrafted free agents they've cycled in. So this just changes that. It's just more of a quality player that they can put in there. And honestly, anything's up for grabs. I think if he can come in and run the ball well, catch the ball out of the backfield, make some plays, they'll put him on the field.
We're probably not going to see him much Sunday against the Steelers. A little bit early, right? Or 2, 3, 4 plays.
I would say he will be on the field.
You think
I would
so?
say they'll get him up to speed. I mean, he's not going to start. Alex Collins is a running back. There's no doubt. I mean, he's their best breakaway option. And so, but I think you'll see him some. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, not a ton, but I'm sure they're figuring out how they can use him.
John, is Joe Flacco playing for the starting job the next 8 games? I mean, if they're a playoff team, does he come back? And if they're not, he doesn't? Or do you have any sense of that?
Well, you're touching on, I mean, if there's a swoon going on here, huge issues here for this franchise. If there's something going on here, if they come up short from the playoffs, there's no telling what the owner, Steve Bisciotti, would do in terms of, retaining the coach, what it means at the quarterback position. They've got his heir apparent in place, Flacco's. So I don't know. I think I don't think they expected to be having these conversations when they were 3-1 and had just beaten the Steelers. So it's come on quickly. And they do feel like they still can make the playoffs. I mean, beat the Steelers. They got the Bengals at home. After that, they win those 2 games. Everything looks a lot different, and they are home games. So I think they're going to be wait and see mode. At this point, there's no cry to replace Flacco. I mean, maybe from the lunatic fringe there among the fan base, but generally speaking, Flacco only gives him. He's had a pretty nice season. He's regressed. Certainly, those losses I alluded to was not good against Carolina. And so, I mean, if that continues, then you may be looking at a major thing down the line here. But there's certainly not going to be a replacement happening anytime soon, I don't think, unless the offense just falls apart.
You look on the defensive side of the ball and where the Ravens are. these next 2 weeks for the Ravens, really, the Steelers kind of were in this situation coming in, the 3 straight games. They had the Bengals, they had the bye week, they had the Browns, and then the Ravens. Obviously, they've taken care of business in the first 2. When you're looking around the the AFC right now, are the Ravens, can you put them in the top 5 teams in the AFC from what you've seen?
I could until last week, but no. I mean, at this point, no. Really, if they don't beat the Steelers, I think that's it for the division. They would be down to a wild card, needing that probably that last wild card spot, because I think the Chargers are going to get in. They've got only 2 losses so far, and you never know, but they look strong enough. I don't think their schedule's that tough, so you're down to that number 6 seed, and right now it's the Bengals. So could the Ravens catch the Bengals? That's possible. They've got them at home here and after the bye. So, even if they lose Sunday, you won't be able to say they're just totally out of it. They've got the Bengals here, right, and that's who they would have to catch. So, but certainly, not good, and a step behind that top echelon for sure.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, John. Look, the Ravens have already beaten the Steelers once this year. The Steelers obviously are ahead of Baltimore right now, in the division record-wise, percentage point-wise, and all. Is this more of a must-win game? Where would you rank this, I guess, on the must-win game meter, if you will, for Baltimore? To me. And you hit on a lot of it. And David and I have talked a lot, already a lot about, look, this thing's already dwindling down to like 8, AFC teams fighting for 6 spots, 9 AFC teams fighting for 6 spots in the playoffs there. To me, it feels like this really is a must-win game for the Ravens, because if they don't, they are pretty much, battling for a wild card spot, it feels like.
Totally. Yeah. In the literal definition, it's not a must-win, because they could go 4-5 into the bye, come out, beat the Bengals, and win some games, and with 7 games left, you just never know. But it certainly is narrowing the options and the window of opportunity, and the margin of error is virtually gone. So if they lose this game, and if they want to win the division, which I think they felt like, golly, they've beaten the Steelers, and they feel like, we're as good as the Steelers. We ought to be able to maybe sweep the Steelers. You ought to be able to win that division. But nonetheless, if they don't win Sunday, it's almost gone. So, yeah, and I would say in general terms, pretty close to a must-win game. And that's definitely something to factor in. As the Steelers coming in here, is that the Ravens are going to be in somewhat of a desperate mode.
What can we look forward to with the Wednesday injury report, and then on into Sunday?
Well, Ronnie Stanley missed some snaps in Carolina. He did come back, and honestly, that was about the only good thing that happened there. Joe Flacco rolled into him on a play where Joe was on the ground, and Ronnie went down, and it looked like one of those things that tears an ACL and you're done. So everybody was like, "Oh my God!" Not only things falling apart, you're going to lose your blindside tackle. However, I guess it just wasn't that bad. He came back in and played. We'll see how the injury report goes, and that's a big one. They're also trying to get. They played that game without James Hurst either, who's been their right tackle all season, and he's missed now the last 2 games with a back injury, and it's caused some shuffling in the line. Orlando Brown Jr., the rookie, has come in and played right tackle. He's hung in there, I'd say. It wouldn't surprise me if Hurst's back improves, that they will move Hurst to left guard, which is where he played last year. They've had Alex Lewis has been there, and he was also injured, has missed the last 2 games, had a bad dinger, I believe, in Tennessee. And then they had Bradley Bozeman, a rookie, play left guard, and he sat out the game, had a heel issue. So, they were down to Hieronymus Grasu playing left guard, and they paid for it. There were some problems in that game. So they're really looking to get healthier on the offensive line is where to look. And the names to look for: Hurst, Lewis, Stanley, Bozeman, a lot of guys on there in the last few weeks. Let's see who they can get healthy and get back on the field. It would really help things.
You think Marlon Humphrey going to play?
Well, I neglected to mention him. Thanks for mentioning him. I don't know. He's missed 2 straight games with a hamstring. You know how those are. He's looking at a bye week. I'm sure he'll be ready after the bye. Before the bye, I don't know. And that would be that would be a difference maker because, the Steelers got those great wideouts. And as I said, if the Steelers can scheme up a better protection for Ben, or move him around a little bit, and it has, as these other teams have done, and expose that coverage a little bit, they have missed Marlon back there. Let me put it that way, because Jimmy Smith is coming off an Achilles, and he's back on the field, but he has not been anywhere close to the type of player he was before that injury.
Who you got, John?
I think desperation will make a difference. Desperation and being at home. The Steelers, I don't think there's any doubt where they're headed. They're rounding into that playoff form, even with all those issues and drama. Always seem to find a way under Mike Tomlin to put it together. It's a playoff team. I do think the Ravens are desperate, and a loss here could really set in motion some serious things for this franchise. I think they win the game. I'd say 24-21.
John, the good thing is there's a chance we're going to get to meet for a third time this season. These 2 teams could, the way things line up, they one could win the division, and the other could be, who they play in the first round with the number 3 seed. But we'll see how it goes. Make sure you check out John's book, The League, story of the early NFL. And John, always great to be with you. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for having me on, as always.
All right, so always good stuff from John, Dave. He was right the first time picking the Ravens. I think you and I were a little skeptical. Now down in Baltimore, the Steelers haven't had great success down there. We've talked about the significance of this win, more from the Baltimore perspective. But from the Steelers perspective, if John's right the second time in a row that the Steelers lose this game, it makes me a little nervous because not only is the division kind of up for grabs with 3 different teams, really. We've pointed it out a couple times. The Steelers' schedule coming up is tough. I think, I've always thought Carolina's been a tough team to read with Cam at quarterback as to what level they're going to play. But there's no doubt that the Saints, the Patriots, the Chargers, those are some of the elite teams in the NFL. And, the Steelers, I actually think in those 4 games going 2-2-ish, would be okay. So if you get this one, you give yourself a little more breathing room.
You absolutely do. And you look at the Ravens' remaining schedule. I don't know how you feel about it. They got the Bengals after, they'll have the bye week after they play the Steelers. Then they come out of the bye week against the Bengals, and they obviously did not look good against the Bengals the first time around, right? They get a kind of a gimme, you would think, against the Raiders, but then their next 4 games, tell me how you think about the 4 games after the Raiders. They play the Falcons, they play the Chiefs in Kansas City, they play the Fitzmagics at home. One would think Fitzpatrick would probably still be the quarterback then, and then they play the Chargers in Week 16 in LA. So that's no cakewalk either.
Yeah, no, that is. Look, you can lose any of those games, just like the Steelers can lose any of the games we talked about. So, it's going to be interesting to see. There will be a distinct advantage for the winner of this game going forward the rest of the season. For the Ravens, it's obviously the 2 wins against the Steelers. For the Steelers, it would be back to even and a much better record, and the Ravens haven't lost 4 out of 5 with that schedule coming up. So, yeah, this is going to be an interesting one.
David, how did you spend? How did you spend that last hour of the trade deadline, counting it down, watching intently on the Twitter machine to see whether or not the Steelers would make a trade? What was all running through your head through that final hour with the anticipation that you had?
Yeah, I can't say that I was in front of the machine. I can't say that I was around any media connection to anything. So
what?
Yeah, believe it or not.
David, the Steelers supposedly had serious interest in Jenkins from the Giants, from Garon Conley from the Raiders, from Patrick Peterson to the Cardinals. They were supposedly going to absolutely deal Le'Veon Bell. I can't believe you weren't just sitting there waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, I have to say, I will say to the interest for fans and the league, the trade deadline has become more interesting, certainly, and it is funny to Steeler fans, like, have to go all in. That's what Colbert's supposed to do. You go all in. Look at what the Rams did. Well, look at what the Packers did. They're not out of it, are they? And they started dealing guys, Clinton Dix, most notably. They gave away, as we heard, they really did give away Montgomery, and that was because of what happened last weekend. Not so much, I think, for the football action, but for some of the stuff he said after the game. You see the Lions, the Lions actually got a great price for Golden Tate. I mean, for a third-round draft pick for a guy who's going to play 8 games for you. But they're a team that's certainly still in the hunt in the NFC with a good quarterback. It was interesting to see some of the moves that were made, and maybe, Demaryius Thomas getting moved as well, a guy who's right up there since, I think, 2014. I think 7 receivers have 400 receptions. He obviously, AB leads that list, but Demaryius Thomas on that list, and he'll be a big addition down there for the Texans.
So what does all this mean?
All this means is, I didn't expect the Steelers to do anything. They didn't do anything. No big surprise. And now, obviously, the focus turns back to the story that's been the story around the Steelers for 18 months now. And Le'Veon Bell's not in, and he's obviously not going to play this week against the Ravens. And he has pushed this thing to the ultimate edge. And I have no doubt that the line, there's no doubt in my mind that the storyline, when he signs a contract with whomever he signs a contract, whenever that happens, will be Le'Veon Bell badly misplayed his hand.
That very well could be. It's certainly still, and we've talked about it several times. I kind of wonder what's gone on through his head through different stages of this process. But look, we'll find out for sure in the next couple of weeks. Now, I mean, he's obviously not going to be there, for this week post trade deadline. We'll see if he shows up at all. Now, here is some interesting. I thought this was a great tweet by Andrew Siciliano of NFL Network immediately after the trade deadline ended. We had Dante Fowler Jr. get dealt by the Jaguars to the Rams on Tuesday, and of course, a little over or right at about a week ago, we saw Amari Cooper dealt from the Raiders to the Cowboys. As of right now, over 1/3 of the first-round draft picks in 2015 have either been traded or released by their original team. How crazy is that? First of all, and then that got me thinking. Let's go back real quick and put all this back into perspective of the 2015 NFL draft. And of course, if you're don't remember off the top of your head, that was a draft that the Steelers took Bud Dupree, number 22 overall. You go through some of these names right now, David. Jameis Winston, what's his status right now? He's benched, and I think he had his 5th-year option picked up, but I mean that you kind of wondering now if he'll see that thing at this point. What is your view on Marcus Mariota right now?
Big question. Both those guys have not lived up to hopes. They haven't been terrible. They haven't been very good either. They've been just average. And that's not what you're signing up for with the first top of the draft pick.
Dante Fowler traded to the Rams, 14 career sacks, and his 5th-year option was not picked up. Amari Cooper was 4th overall. Look, the jury's still out on Amari Cooper, right? But that's
a drop. I don't know if you remember. I was in love with Amari Cooper coming out of college. Too many drops, but a good player again. But go 4th in the draft. You're hoping for better than that.
Brandon, the next 2 picks, Brandon Sheriff and Leonard Williams have been good players, right? Nothing wrong with those guys. Kevin White, 7th overall, has been injured a lot. Kevin White has 24 career receptions to date right now. He missed a lot of games with injury.
2 whole seasons, right?
24 career receptions right now, and obviously missed a lot of times. The next pick, Vic Beasley, been a good pass rusher for the Falcons. Eric Flowers, what a huge disappointment he was at number 9 overall for the Giants there. Todd Gurley at 10th overall, stud running back. Trey Waynes has been good. Danny Shelton obviously is with the Patriots now, kind of a bit player with them. Andres Pete, Devontae Parker, Melvin Gordon's been good. Kevin Johnson's had injury issues. Marcus Peters at 18th overall was obviously a hit, but he's no longer with the Chiefs. He wore out his welcome pretty quick in Kansas City. They traded him to the Rams there. Cameron Irving, really a disappointment. Nelson Aguilar at 20 overall. Cedric Abuye with the Bengals is now a backup in Cincinnati. And then you get to Bud Dupree at 22 overall here. 31 career starts with 16 and a half sacks, and the Steelers obviously picked up his 5th-year option. I'm going to read you off the names of the players drafted to close out that first round of the 2015 draft after Bud Dupree was taken. Shane Ray, DJ Humphries, Shaq Thompson, Brashad Perriman, Byron Jones, Laken Tomlinson, Philip Dorsett, Demarius Randall, Stephon Anthony, and Malcolm Brown.
Well, the funny thing is, I don't know who Stephon Anthony is, and I know that list. The rest of them I can place and kind of place, exactly where they are in their careers. You make a solid argument that Bud's the best of the group.
Well, Byron Jones, maybe you want him.
Safe for the Cowboys, right?
Yeah, moved to corner. I call him a defensive back because he's played, safety in corner and the very athletic.
He came out. He's a kid who came out of UConn, right?
Right. He's the one that jumped out of the building with.
Yep, on the vertical.
Vertical and the long jump and all like that at the combine. Very intriguing guy. I mean, Shaq Thompson, he's been okay for Panther. I mean, he's been a kind of a consistent player. But outside of Byron Jones, I mean, Demarius Randall's had a nice career, but he's already gone from the Packers to
he's moved already
to the Browns. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at, look, and I kind of wrote this as well too, and I put it on Twitter. I don't own a Bud Dupree jersey, and I haven't carried his water much of anything, and since he's been drafted. But when you look back at it now and you add a little context to all this, was it the right pick? I mean, sure, you can go on down, and I did. I listed the players. Here are the players from 33 overall to 50th overall. All right, Landon Collins. Now you can make an argument that. Landon Collins, you'd pick Landon Collins over Bud Dupree. But after that, you got Donovan Smith, Mario Edwards Jr., TJ Yeldon, Devin Smith, Preston Smith. You can make an argument for Preston Smith maybe. Eddie Goldman, Dorial Green Beckham, Devin Funchess, Jalen Collins, Bernard McKinney, Hayola Kikaka, Eric Kendricks, Jakurski Tart, Eric Rowe, Denzel Perryman, Mitch Morris, and Ronald Darby. Maybe you can put an argument in for the 50th player, Ronald Darby there. But overall, when you look at players drafted 23rd overall down to 50th, you probably come away with maybe 3 or 4 guys that maybe you would rather have other than Bud Dupree. So I just kind of wanted to put all that in context. Because at least Bud Dupree is still playing, right? he's still starting. He had probably, I'm not going to say it was his best game against the Browns this past week, but it was a damn good one.
I might. I mean, it's just hard to stack them all up without looking at tape, but he was damn good.
So, I mean, do you get where I'm going with his exercise? Yeah, sure.
Look, I mean, we go back to his, the end of his second year, and I thought, Bud was on that real rising track where he could be a dominant edge guy. He didn't turn into that last year. This year, he's been better. But, again, we've seen up and down. And I think I said going into this game, nobody's ever questioned Bud's athleticism. It's just, production. And, we saw the production against a not very good, green left tackle. So, the key is to come out and do it again this week. And that's the key for the whole Steelers defense.
And, we heard from John how they got a couple of injury concerns right now, and the Ravens on that offensive line. It'd be a good week to stack nice performances for Bud Dupree, wouldn't it?
It would be great. It would be great for him, and it would be great for the Steelers defense.
I mean, you talk about T.J. Watt. I mean, that whole defense right now, we just went over how this is a little bit different looking Steelers defense than it was the first time that they played the Ravens. Now, you could probably say a little bit of the same thing for the Ravens, a little bit different look, but probably not so much in a positive direction as we heard from John Eisenberg too. Jimmy Smith hasn't been, super. Marlon Humphrey is definitely a guy on their injury report to watch the rest of this week as well too. So quite a few things have changed in the last couple weeks for both these teams on a defensive side of football here. Landry Jones might be signed by the Jacksonville Jaguars today.
Yeah, good for Landry. I mean, I think you and I are both a little surprised with some of the guys we've seen having NFL jobs in the league, and some teams out even trying to sign other guys that Landry didn't get signed by anybody. But we'll see. Look,
how funny would it be if Landry starts as a starter when they play the Steelers a couple weeks from now?
They're getting some bad quarterback play, so nothing's out of the question.
Yeah, Bortles has not. I mean, Bortles, yikes. I mean, that whole – you want to talk about a team quickly falling back out of it, after obviously a great season last year. That's the team right there. Okay, thoughts on Mike Tomlin? Mike Tomlin does not need you, David.
Doesn't need help.
He does not need people to help him with reviews or clock management or anything like that.
Yeah, it's just, it's.
He does not need to pay somebody for 1.5, 1.2 or whatever plays a game.
Yeah, you know what? It's just sticking your head in the sand. It's not the best way to run an organization.
I mean, the key is to get it right, right?
Yeah, and those 1.2 plays a game might actually determine the outcome of the game. That's why they're challenged, or that's why clock management is important. And look, I'll say this. We didn't go in detail over the game against the Browns, but Mike, the Steelers had a nice drive to score at the end of the half, but Mike didn't handle that well, and then letting 20 seconds run. They scored the touchdown on the first play with 15 seconds left. They had first down. They couldn't decide what they were going to do, and they let all that time run off. So now, you can maybe get 3 plays off and a field goal in 15 seconds, but you sure as heck are less likely. You can sure as heck have a much better chance of doing it with 35 seconds left, and you let 20 seconds run off. Now, your players executed perfectly for you so that it didn't become an issue, but they did it wrong. I mean, it's a little thing. And I didn't make a big deal about it on Twitter. I'm not making a big deal about it here. But if you keep doing the little things wrong, one of those times it's going to cost you big, and you're going to lose a game because of it. It didn't in this case. It didn't have any impact on the game. But those are the types of things that everybody, I think most people should be able to see. They can certainly understand it post facto, and you got to get those things right. In the reviews, it's just dumb. It's just dumb not to. If his answer is, I don't need to pay somebody, that's about as bad an answer as you can get. This is an incredibly rich ownership group and football team. And if you need to pay somebody a little bit of money to get those things right, get them right.
What do you think about me going, what did I go, 12-2 or no, I went 10-4, I think, this week with my picks, and on the heels of going 12-2 in week 7.
Makes it tough to catch you.
But people can try to catch us at MyBookie, right?
They can get us. They can catch MyBookie at MyBookie, and that is absolutely the thing to be doing. You've heard us talk about it all season long. Whether you're an expert or a rookie, you should be betting at MyBookie because they're the pros. MyBookie.ag, and you can bet on game per game. You can bet fantasy. You can bet parlays. You can bet over-unders. They got all sorts of things going on. And obviously playoff baseball over, but hockey and basketball in the thick of things right now. And, of course, college football, the NFL, plenty of stuff going on. We recommend them because we trust them. They've been in business for years, great online reviews, mobile site's easy to use, and back. Well, I keep saying this is the last time. We'll see, but they're continuing one more week because of popular demand. They're 100% bonus. They're going to match you up for anything up to the $1,000 you put in before Sunday's kickoff. You can kiss it goodbye after that. So it's at BetMyBookie on Twitter or Instagram, and they personally respond to all direct messages or mentions. So check them out. They've given away about $10,000 in free money so far this season. Our promo code, as you know, terrible is the promo code. Put it in there. They're going to match you up 100% up to $1,000. You play, you win, you get paid at mybookie.ag.
One final note on the game against the Browns and that second touchdown to Antonio Brown to close out the second half. What did you think about the play call? You're out of timeouts at that point. What did you actually think about the play call?
I didn't have a problem with it because there's 15 seconds. Now, your point may be a correct one. They've shown that they can butcher getting up to the line of scrimmage quickly and getting things run, but that's the whole point again. If you left yourself the other 20 seconds that you had and you screwed up, you don't even have to think about the play call. It worked, but it's a fair point to bring up. I hadn't really spent a lot of time thinking about it.
Yeah, and results bias can creep in there because it worked and you scored and blah 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 happily ever after. But you go back and look at that thing on tape, man. Demarius Randall comes close to that's almost. What are we talking about if that's 6 the other way? I mean,
no. So listen, it was a really good defensive play. Ben threw it 100 miles an hour. And it was, it worked as a touchdown, but absolutely, that's, you knock that up in the air or, God forbid, if you're a Steeler fan, you pick that baby clean out of the air. And
that's a results bias discussion, right?
For sure. I mean, the one thing is, he's close enough that that's a really hard ball for him to pick off. It's not a hard ball for him to knock up in the air and knock down.
And what if he knocks that thing? I mean, so much can happen at that point, that's almost as results bias as that touchdown pass from Joshua Dobbs that in the end zone to James Washington during the preseason where he goes over the back. I mean, who are you going to praise there? What happens if that's intercepted? What's the narrative of all the players involved on that one play? It just it gets into it. Make sure you watch the tape. Kind of discussions when it comes to certain things like that, because it is very easy to let some of these biases get in there. Boy, NFL Game Pass is just a mess this week. I think they had Mark Davis Barber trim up the all 22. You got plays running into other plays. It's a mess, Dave. I got to do some film room cut-ups for Matthew and myself later on this week. It's so hard to even know where these plays are at in the all 22. We play good money, 10 different accounts we have with them for these guys for Game Pass, and they can't get this thing cut up right now. I've contacted them on Twitter and all like that. They still ain't got it fixed. But anyway, that's my rant for the.
Let me just throw one thing out here. As we've talked about the schedule of this game coming up Sunday, the Steelers, they turn right back around and get an 8:20 game against Carolina. They get the Sunday 8:20 game against the Jags on the road. We've kind of discounted these two westward trips that we haven't been pointing out, but they go to Denver, play a 4:25 game. They get the Chargers at home. They get the Raiders then the following Sunday at 8:20. Then the Pats at 4:25. The Saints at 4:25 before ending the season at 1 o'clock. So enjoy if you're a fan of the early games and that's your thing. Enjoy this one because you're getting one more. You're getting one more until week 17, and that's the Charger game in December. So it is prime time for the Steelers the rest of the way.
It's going to really start moving real fast here these next few days as well, too. Like you said, you got the Ravens game and then a short week on the Panthers, and then you get into the game against the Jaguars after that. All right, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow David Todd on Twitter at David M. Todd. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast at gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to email us, theterriblepodcast at gmail.com. Also, donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit that donate button as well. David and I will finish previewing out the Steelers game against the Ravens on Friday. We'll have our weekly picks and everything that goes along with that. Have a good day.
As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Dave.